What about the crime figures? What are we talking about? What are we talking about in terms of crime numbers? Is this having an impact? It's having a massive impact on homelessness. We've spoken about that. It's having a massive impact on the public finances. We've spoken about that. What about security?
Yeah, I mean, we in the Denver metro area, we have seen skyrocketing crime. Just as an example, auto theft. I've had vehicles stolen 3 times since 2020 myself. The mayor of Denver, who I just mentioned, Mayor Johnston, had his car stolen for the second time in his life just a month ago, just as an example of the kind of property crime, let alone all the violence that we are seeing in terms of gang violence and students engaging in violent activity and so forth. So there's been a large surge in that since COVID, and also in drug-related deaths. If you look at the drug-related deaths in 2021, I think it was, we saw a surge of 70% increase in drug-related deaths and I believe it was the state of Colorado. And that is largely being driven by fentanyl, which is coming from the southern border. So yeah, it absolutely is having some impact. To what extent it's because of the illegal immigration versus other issues, I couldn't say, but it certainly fits in with some massive crime issues that we've got going on.
Yeah, I mean, it stands to reason that if people are running massive human trafficking and people smuggling rings, then they are also probably going to be very involved with the illegal drugs trade, and that when you draw that Venn diagram, there is a rather large chunk of that overlaps, and I think that's completely reasonable to expect. What about the people of Denver, though? You can all mean well initially. You can be a sanctuary city. You can say, hey, refugees welcome, illegal migrants welcome, and then you're confronted by the reality of what that looks like. Are the people of Denver starting to turn, do you think, or are they all in denial?
I think so. I think the issues that are happening with crime, with homelessness, and when you want a prioritization of the people of Colorado or the people of America in terms of public policy, and if your priority is increasingly how do you deal with these migrants when we have a homelessness crisis, just as one example, people are going to say, as they are starting to do in greater numbers, what's going on here? Focus on the crises that we have at home. But I have to tell you, with 30,000 migrants coming in since last year or so, and 7,800 coming from Texas, you had actually this week what's called the Ghost Bus bring migrants in from we're not sure where to right outside the state capital of Denver, Colorado, letting them out at the bus. So when you see these news stories and you see what's actually happening in your communities, of course it's going to resonate. And that's not even talking about the education system, where it's required that kids that are coming across the border and end up in Denver get an education here as well.
Wow, so that's clogging that up. I imagine it's having an impact on health providers as well. It's all the classics, this. A lot of the similar issues that we are seeing over here in the UK. How do we resolve this issue, you think? I mean, you've mentioned there just shutting the southern border. You're keen on things like deportation. How does it work? Does it need regime change? Does Biden have to go?
I certainly think that that's a big part of it. You need a shift in the government. In a state like Colorado, it's a very democratic state that's unlikely to change. Same with the city and county of Denver. When you look nationally, though, I think Biden is very vulnerable at this point, and his policies on the southern border have been inept. They have not been addressing the issue in any sort of serious way, which is why you even have some Democrats, prominent Democrats in the country, that have been speaking out about this issue, at least paying some lip service to it. But what we need at the southern border is more funding for Border Patrol, more funding for technology, get it under control down there. And then simultaneously, I do think you need to address the broader immigration issues in terms of the system in the United States, because there needs to be a better disincentive, not just down at the southern border, but broadly speaking for illegal immigration, where you say, okay, go through the legal process. Let's clean that up more so we encourage the immigrants to come here legally as opposed to illegally.
Yeah, 100%. It's amazing, this crossover. Can I just have one more quick one with you, please? What's your media like about this? We've got problems here in the UK with the way that the media is reporting illegal immigration, with the way that the media reports legal immigration in unbelievably high numbers at the moment. So what's your media class like when it comes to the issues that we've spoken about today?
It's interesting. Generally speaking, Patrick, you would see them ignore the issue as best they could or try to downplay it. But I think the crisis has become so acute that whether you're talking the national media or you're talking the state or local media, you are seeing a shift where there is a need to emphasize what's actually happening, because you can't deny it. It's gotten to that point where it is undeniable. It can't be hidden. Got to be out front. And so there is much more reportage that is exposing what's happening both at the southern border and also in our own communities. I have to say, when you look at the kind of political malfeasance and failures that you see, like the situation with the mayor of Denver and the homelessness issue versus the migrant issue, you are seeing some prominent media voices that normally sort of carry water for some of these folks being more critical in that regard. To me, that's encouraging. But the bigger question is how long it will last, especially with elections coming next year.